Hi, this is John Delancey, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hello, and welcome to episode 77 of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Optimus Solo. Joining me, as usual, is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. And Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
Hello.
And we are back to finish off what we started last time with our second half of our top 20 list of the best films of the half decade. So anybody that listened last week, you heard our 20 through 11, and this week we're bringing you our 11 through number 1. So it's good to have everybody here, and it's good to finally get down to the nitty-gritty. We've been counting down these half-decade lists for a while now, and this is the last of the series. So excited to finally finish this thing off and talk about some of the best movies of the last 5 years. Dan, any comments or anything you want to say before we get this thing rolling?
No, similar to last week, like I said, it's really, those movies that have personally helped shape my movie-going experience in the last 5 years or so. So I stand by all these choices, but obviously, like I said, it's definitely a personal list more so than the movies that I feel like are the quote-unquote, unanimous best of the last 5 years.
Right. And I think I'm definitely in that same boat. A lot of personal choices here, stuff that resonated with me the most. I'm not trying to necessarily pick the best made films or the best received of the last half decade. And also a little caveat of mine, like I said when I was talking about Avengers last week, also if I had a film that I thought represented something that was prevalent in that 5 years, I tried to throw that in there as well. Amanda, any comments before we get this thing rolling?
Yeah, I give no shits about what everybody else thinks is good because I know what I like. So this is a very personal list, and I'm sure that's pretty evident.
And for those that didn't listen to the last episode, first of all, shame on you, and go back and listen first and then come back to us. But Amanda did exhaust her horror choices on her 20 through 11. So she promised us there was no more horror genre films that would make an appearance. I don't know how true that is, but we'll have to wait and see. So Amanda, why don't you kick us off with your number 10 pick?
Okay, I don't know how well received this one is either, but Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. RDJ, Jude Law, love them. I love what they got going on in this. I want to see more of it. I love the shooting style. I loved everything that Guy Ritchie did. I thought it was so cool and super fun, and even though it kind of had the same, I don't know, shtick or whatever you want to call it, as the previous one, I think that it definitely worked, and I'm on board.
I'm a big fan of that series as well. I'm also a pretty big fan of Guy Ritchie's. I know not everybody is, but I like most of the stuff he does, and I think there was some very unique stuff that happened in that series, especially in the first one, the first installment, with some of the effects and some of the ways that they shot some of that stuff. So I think they're a lot of fun. I think they do rise above some of the other fare that we get on a yearly basis, so I'm a big fan. It didn't make my list, but I like those films. I actually need to rewatch probably both of them.
I can watch them over and over again, and I've seen them a ton of times already, and I'm definitely going to go back and watch them again.
All right. I don't know if I've been keeping up on the news if there's another one coming out or not.
I don't know.
All right, we'll have to...
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's like a trillion other Sherlock Holmes stuff now, but...
Yeah, it's flooded. It's Robin Hood and Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I doubt that anything's going to come out based on everything else that's surrounding it.
All right. Dan, what about you? What's your number 10?
My number 10 probably has my favorite overall soundtrack of the year, which is
Magic
important. True. No, that's visual soundtrack. It's completely different. But it's a soundtrack that's important because it's very much a big part of the movie, and that is Inside Llewyn Davis. I am similar to last week. I said I was a Tarantino fan, and like many people, I am definitely a Coen Brothers fan, and I know for a lot of people they had issues with Inside Llewyn Davis because it is a very subtle movie. Not necessarily not a lot happens, but I enjoyed what did happen. It does to me feel very much like a folk song, and Oscar Isaac is just phenomenal. Really kind of to me is his coming out party, from his acting to his singing ability. It really shines throughout in seeing his progression. And I love the little bit of kind of mystery the movie has at the end, where you're kind of wondering like, is there more to this than it lets on? But it's Coen Brothers to me at their best. It taking place during the 60s, 70s era or 60s era, but it's not so heavy with the stylistic choices. It's really subtle with that, and so it's a great film in my mind. So my number 10 is Inside Llewyn Davis.
I actually just re-listened to the Film Spotting episode that did their top 10 films of that year, and I think it was on every single person's list, or at least it was on 3 of the 4 lists. It's definitely got a lot of critical acclaim. I enjoyed the film too. I don't think I was quite as high for some reason as a lot of people were on it. I think it made my top 20 for that year. It's another one that I need to watch for the second time and see if it can resonate with more, because I definitely do love Oscar Isaac, and I do like that folk song setting kind of scenario that we have with that one. So I think that's a great pick. I think a lot of people will be in agreement of that one. For my number 10, I'm actually going to go to 2012. We've talked about it in prior episodes and a long time ago, Dan, I think you and I, but that would be Silver Linings Playbook, a movie that Amanda just recently got to catch up on, and she's given me all kinds of eye rolls.
Why is it so high on your list?
I like this movie a lot.
Jesus.
David O. Russell, Bradley Cooper, De Niro, they were, I think it was just stop rolling your eyes at me. I just think it was a very well put together film. I think there's comedy in there. I think there's a lot of thematic elements that are rich as far as the psyche of the individuals and people that were dealing with those types of issues. And I can't say anymore because she's literally like burning holes into my head with her laser eyes. So Dan, help me out. Silver Linings Playbook is worthy, right?
Well, I think it proves that Philadelphia Eagles fans are mostly mental patients. So that's,
true.
That's worthy. I like Silver Linings Playbook, but I think my issue with David O. Russell, I really love The Fighter, like similar to this, and American Hustle. Though the movies I enjoy, I think the one thing that's like the one thing stopping me from like loving them, I feel like there's just like he just doesn't go further enough. He has really the subject matter is kind of he softens the subject matter. I guess I can't really come up with a better word than that, but right. I do think that the performances are all fantastic. Robert De Niro, even including him, and it does meld that comedy drama element really good. I do enjoy it. I probably, and similar to you with Inside Llewyn Davis, like I enjoy it, but I don't think I am as high on it as you are.
Right. All right. So that means it's time for number 9. Amanda, I'm just going to stare at you the entire time you talk about this one. So what's your number 9?
Go for it, because you're not going to have a single thing wrong with this pick. And I'm going to do another RDJ pick, and that's The Judge from 2014 with Robert Duvall.
All right. I mean, I think a lot of people gave that one a lot of crap. And I can understand why. It's a film that I fully acknowledge. The reason it resonates with me is 100% personal, and just how I can connect to the experience that he's having with his father. So I can't speak objectively about this one because it's 100% biased.
I think it was a super powerful movie, and I liked it. I think that I was happy to see RDJ in this role, and I think him and Duvall really did some good things. And there were some other really good supporting roles there too with what's his name? Kingpin from Daredevil. He was in that.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio, yeah. Kingpin, he was in that. I really, it was an emotional ride, definitely, and I was on board for it.
All right. Dan, your next pick?
Well, my next pick is in the other end of the spectrum. Actually, maybe my only comedy in my top 20, which is kind of weird, but and it's kind of a unique comedy in that sense. But the one word that comes to my mind when I think of this movie is just kind of joy, and because it's just, though it's more than that, but it's in the Grand Budapest Hotel. Wes Anderson being Wes Anderson and all of his Anderson ways. Just the story within a story. But I think that what makes it all work is Ralph Fiennes. He's hilarious. His comedic timing is great. He really should have, if anything, been more acclaimed for his his performance here. But even like from the art direction to again another fantastic one score. It's one of my favorite scores of the year, and overall, and I think it's a story though that has, though much of it is comedic, but there is that in the background a little bit more going on, especially when you think of things like nostalgia and the way we review the past, and kind of ends on a little bit of a somber note. But it was my favorite comedy of the last decade so far, and it's made my top 10. So
yeah, I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan, so I have no problem with a film being represented on the countdown. I think there's a couple that could be on this list when you're thinking about it, and that's a great choice. So definitely had it ranked very high in my top 10, I believe, last year as well. My next pick, I'm going to be that guy, I guess. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate from everybody except for JD. I think he's the only one that's going to support me on this one, but I will put an animated film in here, and I know a lot of people hate it because of the buzz and how much popularity it had, but I'm going to put Frozen on my list just because for me it represents a reawakening of Disney for a new generation. Partner that with Tangled a little bit, but I think just there's a whole new generation now that can kind of experience the Disney magic that really hadn't got to do that for a good part of the decade prior to that. And I think the reason that belongs in the discussion of if we're talking about this new decade is because it does represent that shift that Disney made away from the garbage they were putting out from the late 90s to the mid 2000s. And
you didn't even see any of those 90s movies, did you? So how can you say that?
I've seen quite a few of them.
You just now saw Mulan.
Yeah.
And you weren't even paying attention to it.
No, I'm talking about the Brother Bear and the stuff that came out in the end, and I can't remember even half of their names, but there was a lot of
Journey to Atlantis and
Yes, all of that type of stuff. So I think it
whatever. I liked Atlantis.
it's the closest Disney, like I said, that and Tangled are the closest they came to kind of going back to that mold that we got with like Little Mermaid and Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and all that type of stuff. So I know a lot of people think it's just the song, but I think the other thing about Frozen is it's not just your prototypical Disney princess film. It kind of does it in a different way and kind of breaks the mold a little bit. And I don't care how much of an evil eye you're going to give me. I think it's a great film as far as the animated Disney catalog goes, and I think it's worthy of at least being represented on the list, no matter how many times you shake your head at me. All right. Direct your hate towards me, guys, because I'm the only one that's championing that one on this list, obviously. Amanda, go ahead. Talk about hating.
Well, let's put our big boy pants back the fuck on. And number 8 is John Wick from 2014 with Keanu. Kicked some serious ass. Definitely a hardcore dude. And I was kind of blown away by this movie when I saw it. I was like, wow, when can I see this again? So definitely super like that movie, and I'll watch it again.
Yeah, I think it's a great action film. I think it's a great builder of the world that movie takes place in. Obviously, they're going to have more films in there, but I think there's a lot of fun stuff that people want to see more about with that film. And I think that's one that kind of caught a lot of people off guard, kind of came in from left field. Not many people expected that to be good. I mean, it's got Keanu in it, but it ended up resonating with quite a few people. So I won't hate on your picks as much as you're hating on mine.
It's hard hate about a hitman who has get revenge for his dead puppy. I mean,
yeah.
I would do some serious damage.
All right. Dan, where are you going next with your number 8?
Number 8's a movie that's been mentioned not today, but it was mentioned last week. Surprisingly by Kevin. I don't know. I remember way back when I did my first top 10 for Geekcast Radio, this was my number 1 of the year. And I think at then you were apprehensive to it because I think maybe people thought it was more of a car movie, but it clearly was not. That is Drive. Nicholas Winding Refn's movie starring Ryan Gosling. Does have a great car chase to start the film, but Refn is probably my favorite director, the one I'm most intrigued with when his movies come out, even something like Only God Forgives, which many people hated, but I did enjoy a great deal, mostly because his kind of ability to really examine that of like brutality of man. He also has some really stunning visuals, especially with this from just the style of it. It is a movie. Some people argue it's more style than substance, and I think certainly it is full of style. But I think that is also kind of part of its substance. It's an element to it, and it's very much in the vein of early Michael Mann films. If you look at something like Thief, it's definitely echoing many things of that nature. And again, another great soundtrack, and a soundtrack that has much to say about what's going on in the movie. And Alex Brooks gives a fantastic performance of him being like a mob guy. It's not something you would necessarily expect, and it really made me kind of respect Ryan Gosling, and a lot of skull crushing. Gotta love that too. So it's a movie that I love more and more. I've seen it many times and own it on Blu-ray and watch it when I get the chance to. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't disagree. It was my number 17. I don't think you'd be surprised that I absolutely hated Only God Forgives, but but Drive, for some reason, it worked for me. So I don't disagree with your pick. And Amanda, you haven't said much when the two of us have been talking about Drive. You keeping silent?
Probably for a reason.
Okay, we won't prod you then on that one. So for my number 8, I'll do the same thing Dan did with his. I'll talk about one that was mentioned last week as well. And for my number 8, I'm going to 2012, and that would be Life of Pi. I already said in reaction to your choice of that film, Dan, everything I need to say, but it works on a whole bunch of different levels. Perfect blend of something that works from a visual standpoint, thematic standpoint, performance standpoint. I don't know how much you can really poke too many holes in this film, so I think it's just a fun film to partake in. You can just watch it for surface value and for the visuals, or you can kind of delve into it and get a lot of stuff to chew on. So I think it's a great film. I think it's been something, again, that has grown the more that time has passed. I think I like it a lot more than I liked it a lot when I first saw it, but I think it's even gotten to a point where I like it on a whole different level. So big fan of Life of Pi.
Yeah, I echo all that. It's a great movie.
All right, Amanda, you're number 7.
Okay, so I just realized, I don't know how this happened. I have 2 movies that Shia LaBeouf is in on my top list. And that's Lawless from 2012. I think that super brutal movie, but it was a fun ride, and I think the performances in it were just awesome. There were so many: Gary Oldman, Tom Hardy. That was Jessica Chastain, right? Is that Jessica Chastain?
That was Jessica Chastain.
Yep. Shia LaBeouf, Jason Clarke too. I think that it was a really cool portrayal of that time and what was going on in their life, and I think that Tom Hardy is definitely a badass in this too. So I think super awesome movie.
Yeah, this is one that I didn't catch right away when it was out in theater. I don't know how long of a run it had, but I definitely didn't see it. But I caught it way after the fact and wasn't expecting much, and I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. I think it's a fun ride. All right, Dan, that means you're up next. What do you got?
Well, my number 7 is kind of interesting, and kind of my experience with it. Like, the first time I saw it, I was not actually a big fan of it. I guess, I don't know. I didn't necessarily... I went in there with kind of preconceived notions of what I expect from a movie, but then seeing it again, and definitely seeing it, having the opportunity to see it on the big screen, I really began loving it and really kind of just appreciating what it is. It's not a movie for everyone. It's not a movie some will definitely hate. It's kind of the notion of the director and Terrence Malick's Tree of Life, a movie that really kind of accompanies the history of everything really into one movie. It's about so much, in some ways about not nearly that much, but it's Terrence Malick certainly has a style to him that is his own, and kind of one that really kind of breaks the mold of with lack of narrative, or really kind of his common of people walking through fields talking overhead. But I don't know, it's visually, I think it's stunning. I think there is a lot to kind of chew on, the way it kind of uses memory, and it feels kind of like a recalling of a memory. There's some, I think, some flaws with it for sure when you have a movie that's certainly ambitious of this nature, but I don't know, it's one of, like I said, it's not for everyone. I actually saw this in a theater full of people for a Best Picture showcase, and I don't think I've heard that many boos for a film that was nominated for Best Picture in quite some time. Some walkouts for sure. I know at the time it had to have a plaque up or signs up telling people what the movie was before people went into it, because it had so many walkouts, and I can definitely see that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me for number 7.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it on the show before. Obviously, I was super turned off of Terrence Malick from A Thin Red Line, and I definitely need to. I've been wanting to give him another shot, and I wanted that to start with Tree of Life. I just haven't got there yet, so that will be the next film of his that I see, and I'm going to make that a point to happen in 2016 at some point, so I can join in on the conversation on that one.
I would say let Badlands be the first movie you see, because you can see that he can actually make a straightforward great film before you have to watch him do, like, it's his first movie, and I think it kind of, like, you can see that, okay, he doesn't have to do this style, he can actually do like a legit, just straightforward storytelling. So
okay, fair enough. I'll do it that way. For my next one, I just want to continue the theme of today. Is just how many films can I pick? I guess that I'm going to get my the eye roll from my partner to the left here. So we'll keep that going here with my number 7 pick, which I know I would get that same eye roll from probably everybody that is in our podcasting circle outside of maybe one or two, because definitely not a film for everybody. Like you with Tree of Life, Dan, when I watched this one, there was walkouts as well. But I think that's just from more pure ignorance because they didn't know what they were going in to see. And that would be from 2012, and it is Les Mis. So there's probably not been a film that stuck with me more than this one. As far as over the years, it's one that just does not leave my head. There's so many, and maybe it's just from the fact that my love for different historical pieces and period pieces like that. Maybe it's because I am a fan of the theater and musicals and stuff like that. I don't know, but there is so many different angles that you can take this film at. There's so many different characters to connect to or kind of delve into their stories or their motivations and their decision making. There's a lot of thematic resonance to it, and as much as people want to hate on Russell Crowe and his singing ability or lack thereof, I think for the most part there's a lot of pretty darn good performances from the actors doing the music part as well, and I think Hugh Jackman definitely is one of those that showed some new layers of his kind of portfolio as well. So I'm a huge fan of Les Mis. I know a lot of people aren't as big on it as I am, but it's one of the ones that stuck with me the most, so that is my number 7. All right.
You should have sung that entire review.
No, nobody would still be listening at the end of that. Amanda, you can pick your jaw off the ground and go ahead with your number 6.
I'm not surprised by that whatsoever, really. My number 6 is Django from 2012. We've already said a ton of good stuff about this. You guys got to review it in depth. I did not. There's definitely some stuff in here that I had to look away from. Definitely gritty, get that Tarantino feel going, but, you know, despite some of the more comedic aspects that might have taken you out, like Sam Jackson's outrageous performance, I think Christoph Waltz, this is what solidified him as a great actor in my book. Like, I was like, yeah, this guy is awesome. Jamie Foxx, he was pretty good. I thought he was right on as Django. And even Leo DiCaprio was pretty legit in this, and I just enjoyed all the performances. I think that it was a great take on it and such a good Western feel, so I'm all about it.
All right. I don't think you're going to get much disagreement from Dan or myself based on our thoughts on that film. So, Dan, what do you got next?
My next film is, I guess, maybe another movie that may not be for everyone, but just maybe for very different reasons. It's a movie I know some people kind of gave the label of being a gimmick because it's notorious for being filmed over such a long period of time, and that's Richard Linklater's Boyhood. And yeah, I guess some people were saying if it wasn't filmed through this long period of time, would people enjoy it the way it is, or is it if it was just because the story itself is not that complicated. And I think if you take away that, I mean, you're taking away the essential piece of the film in a lot of ways, because it is very much about, growing old, what it means, that journey that you take. And I'm a fan of Linklater overall. I think what he does really great is find the beauty in small moments, and that's what really Boyhood is in a lot of ways. It's kind of representing those small moments. It's not going towards, watching, you're not seeing a kid graduate, you're seeing the little get-together he has afterwards, or the car ride he has home, or the conversations. And yeah, maybe the existential dialogue that you get from Linklater can turn off some, but I tend to like it. And I think Ethan Hawke is phenomenal. Him and Linklater, when they're together, they're at their best. And even and not that's looking at something like L.R. Coltrane, who was kind of plunked from nowhere and did this movie for 12 years. I know some people have some issues with his acting. I think it does get a little shaky near the end, but considering, what he was, doing here, I thought he was serviceable enough. And I don't know, by the end of it, it just hit me and hit me all the right places. And it's to me, it is an emotional journey that what it is telling and what it is doing, I think it is something really unique and really kind of phenomenal in that way. So.
And to be fair, I think it would be pretty hard to just somehow strategically pick out I don't know how old that kid was when they started it. Like, I
think he was in first grade, so he was about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be real hard to just try to strategically pick out a 6 or 7-year-old that somehow is going to end up being able to, act in the way by the age he is at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's kind
Unless you're like every little kid actor from the Harry Potter franchise.
I mean, it's definitely the crapshoot, but I think it is impressive what they did and what they pulled off there, and their ability to complete that project and do it in a way that worked, I think, for what they were trying to do. I like the movie. I wasn't as high as a lot of people, but I definitely can see why, and I think it is a good snapshot of life in America, or the growing up process, coming of age type deal. So I definitely don't have a problem with it being in the conversation. All right, that means it's my turn for my number 6, and I will go somewhere where we've already been as well, and I will just continue to try to get Amanda to give me dirty looks, because I'm going to be in complete agreement with you, Dan. I already said it ended up being my number 1 film from last year, and that is 2014's Whiplash. I think J.K. Simmons was absolutely freaking phenomenal, and maybe it resonated more with me because I was in band for, good Lord, 8 years. Never like the level that they were in, but I definitely had a variety of different instructors that I could kind of take little bits and pieces out of and relate to this. But I think it's way more than that. It's just a lot of things to delve into when it comes to the themes that they're going over and some of the decision making that's being made, especially towards the end of the film. And everything's shot so well. The music's perfect. I know some people might not enjoy that style of music as much, so maybe it'll be a little bit harder for them, but I just think there's not many missteps in this film. It was far and away the best film I saw last year.
And it's on such the perfect note, too. Like, that ending is just, I get it every time. It's just like,
yep.
It's great.
Totally agree. Amanda, what is your number 5?
Getting down to the nitty gritty here. I've got the 2011's Drive. So you guys have already talked about it. I like this movie so much. It's definitely another one of those that I'm going to rewatch and enjoy rewatching. Oscar Isaac, when I saw this the first time, he was way far under my radar. And after seeing more stuff that I absolutely fell in love with him about I recently watched this with Kevin and saw him and fell in love with his performance in this. I think even Carey Mulligan, I think she was all right. She was okay in this. Definitely wasn't super impactful, but I think Ryan Gosling's character was super interesting. I wanted to know his story. I wanted to be along for that ride, and I think that there was lots of cool shots and action scenes and stuff in this, and his motivations, I think he had some really great intentions, and I think as much as he really didn't outright, say it or exactly show it, I think he had a huge heart, and I think that showed through a little bit. So I really enjoyed it.
All right. Obviously, we're in agreement since it's on both of our lists as well. Dan, what do you got at your number 5?
My number 5 is 12 Years a Slave. Steve McQueen, I think, did something rather phenomenal in the fact that you don't see it very often, where you have kind of the critical crowd, the award crowd, and maybe even many fans kind of all getting behind a movie. And it's a movie that got universal praise, and I didn't see much backlash for it. I think it's because it's that great of a movie, from the performances to his direction. And he doesn't, he's coming from more of a style where he he made movies that Hunger, that many people wouldn't enjoy, very limited dialogue, kind of hard to watch at times, but I think it fit this story of Solomon Northup really well. I've looking at the performance of something like Michael Fassbender to Paul Dano to even Benedict Cumberbatch, but I think really it's obviously Chiwetel Ejiofor who really souls it, and of course Peter Nyong'o as well, those two. But it was Lupita Nyong'o's coming out party, Ejiofor as well, who was an actor, but I think kind of brought himself to another level with this. And it's just, I don't know, it's definitely a tough movie to watch, but a tough movie to watch for all the right reasons. And I think it says a lot, and I think kind of it says everything it needs to in its final closing moments, where you kind of, I guess, spoiler alert for real life, but when you kind of just seeing him see his family for the first time, and it's kind of an incredible, just his reaction to that. But I don't know, it's a movie that I think it's heartfelt, and it could just be complete. Let's just put on the misery, but I think McQueen gives it something more, and he makes Solomon Northup into a complete person, which I think is important. So.
Yeah, I think it also still has one of the best scenes of the last 5 years for me. Just so perfectly crafted, and something that a lot of people wouldn't have had the balls to try to pull off. So I definitely agree with everything you're saying there. For my number 5, Amanda just had the first complete crossover when she said Drive, because all three of us had that on our list, and I'll have the second one there as I put Django Unchained at my number 5, so all three of us had that one as well. We talked about it in depth. It's a great Tarantino film, as most of them are, to different levels for different people. Everybody has their favorites, but I just really love this one. I love Christoph Waltz in this one. I love the humor, I love the dialogue, everything we said in the episode, everything you guys have already said when you guys brought it up. So Django Unchained is my number 5. So the trifecta will go on with that one. Amanda, what do you have for your number 4?
Another Leo joint. I've got Inception from 2010. A super cool idea, really well executed. I love the ending. I love all the performances. I love all the costumes. Everybody's suits were spot on. And I mean, JGL is like a silent badass almost, and I think that there was a lot to take out of this movie. It leaves you wondering at the end on the little cliffhanger, and it was a super enjoyable ride, and that's definitely another one that I'm going to rewatch.
I think that should come as no surprise for anybody that listened to our top actors of the half decade, because I think all of them were in this film.
Every actor that was in this.
So, I don't think you're going to get many people arguing with you about the merits of Inception when it comes to the last 5 years. Dan, what is your number 4?
Well, my number 4 is Kevin's favorite movie, Under the Skin. Similar to Tree of Life, definitely a movie that is not for everyone, but I think the word that kind of comes to mind, it captivated me from beginning to end. It was, I think, a movie very much designed to be unnerving, and it very much was, from its opening sequence to throughout with its unique score. But I think ultimately, it's a human story, seeing this kind of our world through these new fresh eyes. Visually, it's striking, and performance wise, Johansson is definitely understated, but I think she does a lot without doing much, and I don't know, it's such a kind of cliche thing to say, but it very much was the experience that I had that I tend to go back to over and over again. There are just moments that just ingratiated into my brain. The beach scene, for example, of just the Glazer, I think it was great at just finding moments to kind of unnerve you, and I think at the heart of it, you could even argue Under the Skin may be designed to be a horror film in some ways, but I don't know. There's a lot to Under the Skin that I love, and I know a lot of people rightfully don't, and I think it's similar to Tree of Life. That's okay. It's not movies are necessarily designed for everyone, and I think Under the Skin is a good example of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your statement there, and not necessarily saying that I disagree with people that can find enjoyment out of it. I just wasn't one of those people. So, but obviously there was quite a bit of love for Under the Skin. So I think a lot of people will be happy that came up. And then we can go from something that we disagree on to something that we obviously agree on 100%, because my number 4 you just talked about recently, and that is 12 Years a Slave. So it's as close. I mean, I don't know if I want to put the word masterpiece next to that one, but man, it's so close. There's so many choices that work so well in that film. The performances from people that you didn't really know and you weren't familiar with, like you were talking about, this dramatic effect without making it seem, the thing with that film is everything seemed earned. Every moment that had some type of emotional resonance, none of it seemed forced, none of it seemed fake. It all was very earned. You were definitely feeling for the characters as they were going through this, and just the whole premise of how unsettling it is to realize what was happening and what this individual was going through, and then to use that as a window to kind of show what a lot of people were going through. And I mean, we've talked about it to death, but 12 Years a Slave is easily one of the best films of the last half decade. So that is my number 4 pick. Amanda, what is your number 3? We're down to our top 3 of the half decade.
This came as a little bit of a shocker to me. I wanted to see it, but I wasn't, jumping out of my skin to see it. But that's About Time. And I think that Domhnall Gleeson totally blew me away in this movie. Even Bill Nighy and Rachel McAdams, I think all the performances in this were super awesome. The story was great. I think that I'm not really always on board for the mushy love stories. Yes, I did like Notebook, so maybe that kind of dragged over to this one. But I was totally vested immediately, and the family dynamic that they have, the relationship between the father and son, just all the struggles that he goes through, and the cool time travel aspect. Who doesn't love a little sci-fi in your love story? So I couldn't wait to have Kevin watch this after I saw it. I was just like, I love this movie. I want to see it again. I need to see this. We need to talk about it. And it quickly rose up there on my ranks.
Yeah, I think this is one that if we were expanding it to like top 35, top 40, somewhere like there, it probably would have snuck its way into my list as well. I think it's not always that you have time travel elements that work as well, or
it doesn't need to be explained either. Like, it's just there.
Right, and that are handled in a way like they are in this one, where it doesn't just create a whole bunch of problems that they don't deal with. So I like the performances. I thought it was a lot of different relationships that you could invest in, and just the whole idea of well, I guess it's in the title, About Time. So a lot of stuff that resonated with me too. So it would definitely be in my, like I said, top 40 probably.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh, damn. It's okay, because I have not seen 12 Years a Slave. So.
All right, so we're all getting stuff to put on our list, I guess. Dan, what's your number 3?
My number 3, I think, is the perfect example when you have great actors meet a great director, meet a great script, and just meet great production overall. And that is The Social Network. I never, when I heard they're making a movie about Facebook, you kind of roll your eyes thinking it's going to be ridiculous. But then it's like, well, it's written by Aaron Sorkin. Okay, well, then that kind of changes my mind a great deal. It's but it's starring Jesse Eisenberg. It's like, really? I don't know about that. But then it's like, oh, and then it's just, then I remember we were seeing the first trailer for it and being like, wow, that actually seems like it could be quite good, and it very much was. And I think what Fincher was able to do is just show us that Facebook is a universal story. It's it's not necessarily about Facebook. It's just about the character of Mark Zuckerberg, not necessarily the person, because I know there's been questions over its how much it represents real life. But as a film, I think it works really well. And Jesse Eisenberg surprised me. He could be a legitimate actor. Unfortunately, I think he hasn't come back to this level since then. But I think I was hoping he would. I think he kind of showed he's more than that kid from what he's done in the past. I think he's much more capable of an actor than he gets credit for. But and then
maybe he'll get back to that status this year.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. And then you have you add in something like the the soundtrack or the composer by Trent Reznor, and it's to another level. And it's, you know, Fincher being Fincher in his ways, and kind of finding it has that feel that you want in a Fincher movie. And the score is just works so well from the opening to the end. And I don't know, I think it's like a great piece of American filmmaking. And yeah, it's my number 3.
I think that because I was really strong supporter of this film when it came out too, and it was in my top 10 that year. And for some reason, I haven't thought about it as much since then as I have some of these other films that are on my list. I think it's one that I just need to rewatch again to kind of re-solidify how much I liked it originally, because I too was someone that was a big supporter of this when it came out. I think it's a great pick.
Surprisingly enough, even though it does have Justin Timberlake in it, I have not seen this.
All right, another one to add to the list. For my number, if anybody's listened to our podcast over the last 2-3 years, they probably easily could predict my top 3, so not going to be too many surprises here, but my number 3 is my number 1 film from 2011, and that would be the film 50/50. I just, again, struck a personal chord with me, really resonated with the themes that were going on here in the relationships, and as much as there's been at least 2 to 3 films about somebody with cancer, it seems like it's a rule now every year, but that one did it in a way that really struck a chord with me, and I thought it was really well handled. The right mixture of drama and I don't want to say comedy, but I guess comedic moments, or at least stuff to ease the tension a little bit. And it's just a film I really love. So 50/50 is my number 3.
Yeah, it's within because I expanded mine to like a top 50 just in case, and it's high up there for me as well. It's like my number 2 or 3 of that year, and I echo that. It's really well done.
Yeah. All right, Amanda, number 2.
Okay, so this is my last cheat.
Well, it's number 2, so didn't have a lot of room to cheat anymore.
And this really, really pained me, put these in this slot. And that's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 from 2010 and 2011. And if you know anything about me, you know how obsessed I am with Harry Potter. So for it to be at number 2, just know that I'm in serious pain doing that. But I just... It was like a culmination of my childhood, or like it's the ending of something that I started so long ago, and getting to that final payoff and wrapping up everything and going through the most serious of emotions that they go through, and some really difficult stuff and hard scenes to see, especially with some of the characters that you learn to love, or even the ones that you learn to hate. And I think visually this movie was awesome. There was not a moment in this that I was bored, where I felt like I wasn't interested anymore. I kept wanting more and more and more. I've seen them so many times since then, and I keep finding more things to pick out and to love. So Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 is my number 2.
I totally don't know what your number 1 is, because I would have thought it would have been Inception or Harry Potter. So I'm anxiously awaiting what your number 1 pick is. And I'm a big fan of the Harry Potter films too. I think that's a great representation of a great culmination, I guess, of that series of films, and I think they ended it fairly well.
I know, like, the Part 1, Part 2 thing has been kind of done to death now, but I think for them it actually made sense, and I actually really like both of those films, and I think Part 1 actually might be my favorite Harry Potter movie overall, but as Part 2 is great too. Unlike, the other ones that have done it and have, like, Twilight or Hunger Games, that maybe not should have. I think it made sense for Harry Potter.
It left you in that moment where you were just like, you still wanted to see that next thing. You were left on that kind of hook, but it wasn't like, man, I just sat through all this stuff that's building up to more stuff. It was all this stuff happened, and I still want to see more, and there's still more to come.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, what is your number 2?
Well, it's been a long time since I've had a documentary, and I'm saving it for my number 2. And I mean, it's kind of weird to call a movie important, but I think The Act of Killing is one that is definitely that, because it kind of shows you, for those that don't know, it's kind of like a look at what happens if people who committed genocide end up winning. and what is their viewpoint on life later down the line as you see kind of these people examine what they did in the past and kind of reflect on it in a weird, unique, odd way. I know you said with your last film, with 12 Years a Slave, you don't want to use the term masterpiece, and I think Act of Killing is close to that, and what it's able to capture, and it's in Access is a huge part of it, but I think it's compelling for in seeing these people and like what they did, and just their kind of, I don't know, their openness of it is kind of insane. It's surreal throughout it, and I know they've made I think that The Look of Silence this year, which is supposed to be, I've not seen, but I don't know. It's a movie that is, I think, one that I would say is something that I think everyone should see, just because of what it kind of lets you see, and lets you see kind of what humans are capable of, and for all the wrong reasons. So
I don't think I've ever heard a single bad thing said about Act of Killing or so far this year on The Look of Silence, and it's two documentaries that I definitely do want to catch up on, because it seems like it's a super interesting insight into, like what you're saying, how humans can be, and the human element, and the unthinkable, and
like how you can kind of compartmentalize all that stuff,
right?
How they were able to do it, and it's a movie I would say just kind of stick, because there'll be times where you maybe just want to, like, you can't take it, but I would say, like, stick to the end, because I know some people felt like it almost allowed them to use it as, like, the people in the film use it as a cathartic experience, but I didn't get that. To me, it was more of it wasn't trying to justify or kind of use it, kind of make you feel sympathy for these people. To me, it was just looking for, what kind of drives someone to do that. Really, I don't know. It's fascinating, really. It's hard to really explain.
Definitely high on the list, and things of it's on the 2016 bucket list, I guess you can call it, films that I have to knock out this year. So for my number 2, it's already been mentioned again. Amanda mentioned it just a couple picks ago, and I think a lot of people, when they were making their half-decade lists, were almost forgetting about it because it had come all the way back in 2010. But I think it's hard to ignore Inception, just unless you're just a Nolan hater, I guess. But man, there is so much good about this, and talk about an ensemble cast that really has gone on to do some amazing things, and did some amazing things in this film. Just the creativeness in this, and the way that he was able to kind of harness all these ideas, and maybe show a little bit more restraint than people thought with some of his future films, one in particular. But man, I don't know how many lists Inception topped as far as people's top films of that year. So many people had it as their number 1 film of 2010 or number 2 film or something like that, and I think it'd be a crime if we didn't talk about it at least a little bit here in our top films of the half decade. So Inception is my number 2.
So you have 2 Leonardo DiCaprio films in your top 5. Wow.
I don't hate movies he's in, and I don't necessarily even hate him. It's just, for some reason, when I go to analyze his performances or try to think of him in relation to some of the other actors that are performing, for some reason something just doesn't gel with me. But it doesn't mean I don't like the characters he plays or the movies he's in.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, Amanda, it's the moment of truth. What is the best film of the half decade?
My number 1 film from the last half decade is from 2013, and it's The Place Beyond the Pines. This movie blew me away. I recently saw it this year. I just randomly picked it up because I love Ryan Gosling. I'm like, oh wait, I haven't seen this. And Bradley Cooper, I'm like, what's going on here? I think that everything about this movie, his performance, his character was so interesting, and his relationships with people, and then how it kind of shifted. So how his life and his choices affected other people around him, and even, his child, and even people who didn't know him that were affected by things that he did in his life, and how it shifted focal points from one character to another. Really was awesome. I'd never seen that before, I don't think, anyways, and I think it was really just superbly done, and I recently had to buy it too because I liked it so much. So I need to go back and watch this more.
I knew you liked it. I was not expecting it to be your number one, but that's a good pick. Dan, what do you think? I remember us talking about this briefly a long time ago, but where do you sit on Place Beyond the Pines?
I do enjoy it. I love the first act, the Ryan Gosling act. The second act a little bit less, and the third act a little bit less than that. But if you kind of just take that first act and that was the whole movie, it probably would have maybe made my top list because I enjoy it that much. But just the culmination of it all didn't completely work, but I enjoy it overall. I think it's a successful film.
Yeah, I remember liking the first part a lot. I've only seen it once, so I'd have to rewatch it too. But I remember liking all the Ryan Gosling parts, and I just got a little bit of a jarring effect as they shifted gears, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. So maybe on a second watch, it'll be more effective. But I definitely had it, I think, in my top 20 or 30 that year. So definitely a good film, and like you said, a successful one. So Dan, what is your number one film of the half decade?
I think you have an idea what it could be, because I think we have the same number one, but I could be guessing here. I'll be honest, this was an easy choice for me. There was no question in my mind what my number one was going to be, and it is Her. I don't know. It's a movie that, to me, no movie was nearly as kind of thematically rich as this film in the past 5 years. There's just so much to it. People kind of the story of a man falling in love with his phone, and I know people tend to focus in on the technology aspect and what that says about our culture, but I don't know, to me it was always a movie about language and how we can use it to kind of almost create a false authenticity, even though we know it's not there. Like the fact that Joaquin Phoenix's character works at this greeting card company, and he opens up and he's giving this amazing soliloquy about his love for a person, but you realize it's not even a person he knows, it's someone he's writing someone else's letter for. And I don't know, there's so much to it. I love the world Spike Jonze creates here, and it's from the fashion sense where everything's just a little bit off with the high pants, and also just love how it's not like, it doesn't go the obvious route of a guy falling in love in a phone where you just go with the obvious humor or anything like that. It's just much more, and Joaquin Phoenix is phenomenal, and it really made me this past decade overall just reevaluate what I thought of Scarlett Johansson as an actor, and the fact that they were able to create chemistry with these two characters, even though they technically never even spoke to one another. I think that kind of adds another layer to the film, realizing that the relationship that it's building was built in post-production, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But yeah, I could talk all day about Her, and I think we actually did a review way back when about it as well. So, but I'll save room for others to mention about it more. So.
Well, I mean, you and I will disagree on a lot of films throughout the years, I'm sure, and even ones that we've counted down here in our top 20, but we will never disagree about Her. So that is also my number one film of the last half decade. A lot of things you touched on, and I think you hit one of them right on the head there, where a lot of people do focus on the technology aspect and kind of what it's saying about society and humans' inner relationship with technology, whether it be computers, phones, or whatever it might be. And I do think that is an important part of the film, but I think you touched on another aspect with his job with that greeting card company, and that is great evidence to the other point that you're making about the language and communication in general, and I think that's just a whole nother element that you can get from this film. You talked about Joaquin Phoenix, and he is, I almost said River Phoenix, I don't know why I did that, but Joaquin Phoenix is absolutely amazing, and I think you hit another nail on the head with the ability to have this relationship with two people that never even spoke to each other and never saw each other and all that type of stuff. So I think that was amazing. I think the way it was shot, I think there was and we talked about this way back when on our full review back in towards the end of 2013, which you can go back and listen if you want to hear more in depth. But the attention to detail that Spike Jonze has in this film, every aspect, every item that is in a room, every item that is in a shot, it was just so meticulously crafted by him and well shot. And I didn't want to necessarily throw out the masterpiece term before, but I think it does apply to this film. And I wasn't sure that we were both going to have it number one here. We both had it number one of 2013. I wasn't sure where it would rank when we were taking another 4 or 5 years into it, but I think that just shows how much this film can resonate to two individuals that have very different philosophies or opinions and taste when it comes to films, and it's just something that works on so many levels that it's impossible to ignore. I am in 100% agreement with you. Amanda, why don't you take us back through your 10 through 1, remind people what you had.
All right, at 10 I had Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, 9, The Judge, 8, John Wick, 7, Lawless, 6, Django, 5, Drive, 4, Inception, 3, About Time, 2, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, and number 1, The Place Beyond the Pines.
Dan, how about your 10 through 1?
My number 10 was Inside Llewyn Davis, 9, The Grand Budapest Hotel, 8, Drive, 7, The Tree of Life, 6, Boyhood, 5, 12 Years a Slave, 4, Under the Skin, 3, The Social Network, 2, The Act of Killing, and 1, Her.
And my 10 was Silver Linings Playbook, 9, Frozen, 8, Life of Pi, 7, Les Mis, 6, Whiplash, 5, Django, 4, 12 Years a Slave, 3, 50-50, 2, Inception, and 1, Her. Now, a couple questions for you guys before we wrap this up. Dan, which ones just outside of that just missed the cut? What was the closest ones that you had that you really wanted to put in there, but because we were limited at 20, you just couldn't quite find a spot?
I had The Master. Actually, Toy Story 3 was very close. It was my favorite animated film. Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. Another documentary, Let the Fire Burn. Gravity. And another movie that I tend to like more than everyone ever is The Selfish Giant, which was one of my favorite films of that year at the time. So.
All right. Amanda, what about you? Anything that you just couldn't quite squeeze in there?
A couple things I really enjoyed were The Immigrant. I saw that pretty recently. I think I connected super heavily with that one. Some stuff that I had fun with, Hansel and Gretel, The Witch Hunters, Sucker Punch. I think that movie looked super cool. Also had Oscar Isaac in it. Really enjoyed that one. What else do I have? Ted. No mention for Ted. Super funny. Love that guy. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Well, you guys have already talked about probably about 6 of my honorable mentions, so I'll skip over those. But the ones that haven't been mentioned that I thought about, Moonrise Kingdom was the other Wes Anderson film that I was highly considering putting on there. Moneyball. Let's see, what else did I have? Perks of Being a Wallflower, Snowpiercer, the Lego movie from just recently, Selma, and A Most Violent Year, since I was so confused and I still don't know where to put A Most Violent Year as far as which year it came out. I just kind of leave it out there in limbo land and never put it on a list.
I'm the same way.
But it should be on some list somewhere. And then, what was the other one? Oh, obviously a personal favorite, but I just couldn't quite find a way to get either of them on the list, and that would be the Planet of the Apes films. You guys all know how much I champion those, but I couldn't realistically put them in the top 10 here. So those were probably some of the ones that just missed the cut for me, not counting the ones that you guys had already mentioned. Any other surprises as far as films that came up on the list, or were you surprised that certain films made it into your top 20, Dan, that you wouldn't have necessarily thought would have when you first thought of the idea?
Well, I guess I was kind of surprised in how we didn't have nearly as much crossover as I thought there might be, which was interesting. I don't know if there's anyone that really surprised me per se. I guess I at first kind of didn't expect The Social Network to be as high as it was, but as I was kind of considering everything, looking at everything, and I actually did go back and rewatch that, and it kind of just solidified how much I really love that movie. So,
I think one of the things that I kind of liked about this project and kind of trying to put this together was, I mean, obviously we do our top 10 films of the year every year as we kind of go through that. And I was interested to see then now when we were looking back at the whole 5 years as to how much my original rankings either held up or didn't hold up. And even found it here when we were doing this. I had my number one film of 2012 was actually Les Mis when I did that list back at the end of 2012. But when we came to do this list, Django had leapfrogged over it a couple spots, and I actually ranked Django higher now. So it is fun to see how kind of some films either grow or diminish as the years go by as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like my original top 10s are nothing what they are now, like a year or two later.
And it's not just necessarily, I mean, obviously you have the aspect of films that you hadn't caught up to yet. So, you see a couple films that you hadn't seen and they bump something out. But even the ones that you had already seen and kind of seeing them flip-flop spots with some films is kind of interesting to see as you kind of evolve. So, Amanda, anything about making this that surprised you, or what was the toughest part of putting this list together?
I think what surprised me the most is not having Harry Potter number one. And before I saw Place Beyond the Pines pretty recently here, then it definitely would have, because, like I said, it's a big part of my childhood, and it was a really awesome experience. As far as everything else, I definitely have my favorites, and I have my niche, and I have what I like, so I know what I want.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, so that does it for our look back at the half decade. We'll have to wait a few more years before the decade's concluding to see how much this list even changes by the time that's all said and done. So hopefully you guys had fun watching us count down the different genres, the best actors of the half decade, actresses, and now finally the films. And now that that is over and done with, we will shift our focus to more recent times, and we'll be looking next week at our top films of 2015 as we all try to cram in one or two final viewings to see how they might impact the very crowded space, at least that I have, towards my top 10. There's a lot of films right now fighting for that number 10 or number 9 spot, so we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But let us know how you think your picks stack up to ours as far as our top 20 films of the last half decade. Let us know which ones you can't believe none of us mentioned at all, and let us know what you'd have at number 1. You can do that by going to the website geekcastradio.com, finding the episode post, and commenting there, and we would love to interact with you and reply to your comments on the website. You can also keep up to date with everything that the Geekcast Radio Network puts out by becoming a fan of us on Facebook. And the best way to interact with the show specifically, or us specifically, in social media is on Twitter. The show Twitter handle is at Cinema Geekcast. Amanda, what is yours?
Hard Candy Mandy Eyes No Eyes.
Mine is at Optimus Solo, and Dan, yours is?
At Movie Revolt.
All right, so that does it for us for this week. We will talk to you guys next week as we count down our favorite films of 2015.